Violence is learned behavior. And so what we need to address, people don't know how to deal with conflict. That's number one. We have to identify the issues in the community. Then we have to come to the table and address those issues. I'm going to connect. So often we connect from the top down. I'm going to work down up and top down, and we're going to meet in the middle. Thank you.
Could you tell me what is the Attorney General office? What is the job of Attorney General?
So, in layman's terms, the Attorney General is the gatekeeper of the criminal justice system. It's the person who decides whether or not someone will be charged, and if they are charged, what the charges will be. They also represent the state of Tennessee. When a person is arrested by the police, they are not officially charged with a crime. Okay, that's just an arrest. And then they go and they're charged by the district attorney, or here in Tennessee, known as the district attorney general. They also will hold someone to the state. So often I hear people say when they're in general sessions court, and then they're held to the state. I hear people say they got picked up by the state. And I'm like, okay, do you understand that's the same office? It's not some state of Tennessee that comes down here and picks your case up. It's the very same office. And once it's held to the state after a preliminary hearing, they can seek an indictment against someone. From there, the case goes to criminal court, and they represent the state of Tennessee in criminal cases. But another function of the District Attorney General is public safety and the general welfare of the public. And I consider that to be the most important role.
Okay, that's a great answer. Let me ask you this. Right now, you are running against an incumbent and also 3 other candidates. What do you bring to the table that you feel that's better than any other candidates right now we are offering themselves for that job?
So I bring experience that they don't have. I'm the only candidate that understands the system from the street. I was a Memphis police officer. I officially worked as a police officer for 8 years. Part of that time I was going to night law school and had taken a leave of absence for the last 2 years, but officially 8 years. And that's important because the district attorney will be considering excessive force cases, will be considering police-involved shooting cases. And there are certain things that I know, just because I was a police officer, that won't make sense if I were told a certain set of facts. For example, if a person is right-handed and the police say that we shot him because he had a gun in his hand. They kill this individual, and the individual dies with a cigar in his hand. It didn't happen that way. No one uses their weak hand to shoot a gun. So it's just those kind of things that's why that's important. And then from the street, so I know what happens from the street to the courthouse. And that's because I worked as a federal judicial law clerk to United States District Court Judge Jerome Turner, who, by the way, was the judge that found out that runoff elections were unconstitutional, and we were able to elect Dr. W. Harrington as the first black mayor of Memphis. And then from there to the United States Department of Justice, where I served as a federal prosecutor for 15 years. So I have veteran experience as a prosecutor. And that was a great job because the training and everything was good, but it was different from the Justice Department that we knew in the Civil Rights Division. As a matter of fact, sometimes it was unjust. And then from there to the civil trial, I was a civil trial attorney. And I left the federal building in 2011. I decided to leave, and I said I was going to do justice outside the walls of the federal building. And that's what I've been doing. So I later became a mediator, an arbitrator. I'm trained by the International Institute for Restorative Practices, and I have developed and worked with crime prevention strategies, as well as restorative practice reentry circle. I designed one, and restorative practices community mediation program.
Alrighty, let me ask you this then, Ms. Harris. Working on the federal level and then coming to a county like Shelby County, what's the major differences that you anticipate in doing your job based on what you did with the federal system versus the state level or county level?
So the federal level is harder to try cases than they are strictly by the rules. In fact, a number of attorneys who practice in state court don't come to federal court because for that very reason. It is much more professional, in my opinion, being in the federal sector. And so they have different strategies. Janet Reno had what was known as the Weed and Seed program. That really, we talk about restorative practices and restorative justice and all that. That was a restorative program. It was in the 90s, and I was the coordinator for that program. And it was about collaboration, coordination, community buy-in and participation, and leveraging resources. It was about neighborhood revitalization. It was about mental health and drug and alcohol treatment. So that's what I will bring to this community. Those type of proactive crime prevention, dealing with the real issues in our community. Because if we don't deal with the underlying causes of crime, then we will never be able to put a dent in crime. Of course, you can't ever totally eliminate crime, right? But we need to get to the why certain things are happening, because we know that hurt people hurt other people. So, and we have a lot of hurt people in our community. A lot of people who have been neglected or who have been placed in this system, in the criminal justice system, from the schoolhouse to the jailhouse. There is a schoolhouse to jailhouse pipeline.
You said something very interesting. I know Memphis is known, has a problem with crime, and everybody's talking about fighting crime and making crime as an issue. So do you have specific programs that you're going to bring to the table that will help eliminate some of these problems that we have in the community?
Yeah, so the first thing you have to do in any new job that you start, or particularly undertaking something like this, is you have to have a total, complete, independent evaluation and assessment of where you are. What do we have in the system today? And where do we want to be a year from now? So the only way I could be accountable to the public is to go in and assess that. But we have to find alternatives to incarceration, right, for low-level offenses. I think there are three types of people. One are those who pose a danger to the community, and they have to be incarcerated. But what happens while they're incarcerated is different, but they have to be to keep the public safe. Then we have a group of people who may become involved in the criminal justice system that the right thing to do is to find some alternatives to incarceration, and they need to be rehabilitated without being incarcerated. And then the third set of people would be those who don't need to be in the criminal justice system at all. And we have a lot of people who don't need to be in the criminal justice system at all. Our youth in particular, right? We have a criminal justice system that views our kids as bad. When children are viewed as bad, they are treated badly. And it also affects the child's psyche. I mean, if I'm told I'm bad, I will live out your expectations. We know in our community we have a lot of trauma. We have a lot of adverse childhood experience. If anyone looked at the George Floyd homicide, if you looked at the trial, you could see the trauma of the individuals who watched that. They sat back helplessly and hopelessly, and they were traumatized as they testified. Well, when our children see violence in the community or they see someone killed, they're traumatized, right? And it teaches them how to deal with conflict. How do I deal with conflict when I'm angry? I shoot someone because that's what I'm learning, right? Or I will use profanity and I'll, just curse you out or cut you or just fight, right? So we have to teach conflict resolution as a part of how we are going to resolve things. And that's through restorative practices, okay? And which is, they know about this all over this because it's being used all over the United States. And it's very effective in the school system. And what it does is it eliminates the zero tolerance policies in schools and allow children to make mistakes. I mean, we all make mistakes. I was just listening to a Shelby County Fire Chief today. I went over to Hamilton High School. They had a scholarship program, and I was listening to him say that he worked at a grocery store when he was a young man in high school, and his friends would come in and they ring up every other item, right? And he talked about how he got caught. His boss saw him, and he was caught and told him to cut the register off, called him upstairs, and he knew that he was caught. And when he got up there, his boss told him, I'm not going to call the police. I'm going to fire you, but I'm not going to call the police. And he talked about how that could have been different and how he could have had a life in the criminal justice system. And he was so thankful to that manager for not calling the police and not having him prosecuted. And he went back years later and he thanked him. So that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about. Versus, I know I went on a little bit, but I'm very passionate about that. But versus a system that views other kids as troubled. And so, those terms mean something. So we have children who are troubled. They're disobedient. They can be disrespectful. They can be unruly. But those terms are different from just saying they're bad, right? And so what is it that's causing this behavior? When we heard about the child over at Cummins that shot another child, what prompted that child to shoot? And so that's why I get excited about restorative practice, because I know it deals with bullying and other issues. Because bullying didn't just start. It's been around as long as I know. I was bullied, but now they shoot because that's learned behavior, right? And so we have to try to teach different behavior, and I know we can do that. But it does take also community buy-in, because restorative practices, it simply says that people do better and respond better when you do things with them. Not for them, not to them, and not neglectfully. So it's a with. For example, if someone came back and we did a reentry circle, we would meet with them, and we would ask them the restorative questions. What happened? What were you thinking? What have you thought about since? Who was affected by what you did? And what do you think you need to be successful? Once they answer those questions, then there's the circle, the reentry circle. And we would make suggestions for them on some of the things that they need. But they would have, let's say they needed a job and they don't have transportation. So we would say, okay, well, we will pick you up at the corner of ABC and EXZ every day at 7 a.m., but we're not gonna pick you up at your home. So that's an example of a whip. But the overall program is one that you develop a strategic plan. And that's something that I cannot do until I'm elected. You pull together a steering committee. And it's going to consist of experts, court personnel, even law enforcement, but it'll also include the people most affected by the crime. If that is the offender, it will include the offender. If it's the victim, it will include the victim. Because we need to simply, the most important thing I learned from being a mediator, I may not be able to tell this right now because I'm talking a lot, is to listen. Listen. People want to be heard. And that is so important, which is why I would create an outreach division in that office and focus more on going out to our community and hearing the concerns of the people in the community. Because quite frankly, they can tell you how to resolve crime. One lady I met, she told me that she can tell you exactly what time the police is gonna ride by every day. I know exactly what time they're gonna ride by. And if I know what time they're gonna ride by, so do the people who are doing the stealing and the robbing. So if we just listen to people. Another guy told me that at the same intersection, 4 people were killed within a 6-month period. And I said, well, what do you think they should have done? He said, put a camera up after the second person was killed. I was like, that's a great idea. So, you know, we just have to listen to people. And there's been a lot more I could tell you about, but I'll stop there.
Okay, well, I don't want to keep it any longer, Ms. Harris. Finally, is there anything you want to say to the campaign is getting revved up now?
Yeah,
Is there to say to your
well,
public?
let me. So I talked about working to reduce crime in this community, and it is through mental health treatment, drug and alcohol treatment, working with our community, being restorative, being proactive in crime prevention. But I'm also going to work to reduce the number of our youth who are transferred to adult court. I've had a number of conversations with individuals who have been in the system, and they'll say, Ms. Harris, you don't know what that feels like. They're right, I don't. But they tell me there's a lot of trauma, and when they come back, what that means to them and how it's hard for them to not feel marginalized and not feel ostracized. I think they should be totally, at some point, redeemed. I.e., what else in life do we have that we are never fully forgiven for? Nothing. But if you commit a felony, you can never have certain rights. And I think I'm going to advocate for that to be changed. If a person doesn't do anything for, 10 years? Why can't they just be totally restored to their full citizenship rights, especially after they've served their time? But okay, so I talked about that and being accountable to the public. I will be very accountable, very accessible, and work hard. I have worked hard all my life, and I will work hard as the next Shelby County District Attorney General to make Shelby County better. And my theme is together we can make Shelby County better.
Okay, thank you, Attorney General Harris. I guess I said that prophetically for your time and for talking to the public. And we're looking forward to the early voting has already started April 13th through April 28th, and the election day is May 3rd. So I want everyone to go out and get out and vote for Linda Harris, for a change in Memphis, a change for the state, and maybe a change for the nation. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for this opportunity to talk to the citizens of Shelby County.